All right, well, we're heading over, I'm headed over to my buddy Anthony's to pick up my engine. He's had it for a little while. He got it freshened up and ready to put back in the buggy. So we're gonna go over there and talk to him, visit with him a little bit about what he does. He's a fabricator builder guy too. He owns a company called DF Fabrication, and we'll talk to him about the engine and anyway, introduce you to him. All right, so we're here at Anthony's shop. Anthony is the sole proprietor of DF Fabrication. I've known Anthony now for, what, since 2015, 2016? He's responsible for getting me into this damn thing, this off-road sport. It's just a money pit.
The love.
Anthony, he fabricates, he does all kinds of different stuff. You build chassis, you build full turnkey buggies. You do a bunch of...
machine knuckles, build custom axles, axle shafts. Yeah, we pretty much try to do everything in-house, so.
You got all kinds of stuff that you do. You're busy, you got more ideas than you got time, just
yes,
like the rest
definitely.
of us. So,
anyway.
anyway.
Motors.
Yeah, you do motors too.
Love building motors, so.
So I brought this, I believe, this is a 5.3, I think they call it an LM7.
Gen 3.
And I think it was out of like a 2005 Silverado pickup. So I brought this to Anthony to have freshened up. I didn't want anything super high horsepower from my first V8. I don't want to kill myself right away. But why don't you just kind of go through and tell us what all you found and what you did?
Yeah, so we took the whole motor down to the block, pulled all the pistons, and actually had very good wear on all the main journals and all the bearings, which was really nice to see because the upper end of where the valve covers are was kind of caked with residue where, you know, how people don't change the oil. You can kind of see it, yeah, when you open up a motor. So it was good to see the bearings were good, but nonetheless, we had a fresh bearing kit to go in it. Did notice there was some grooving on some of the lifters inside. And so I recommended, because we were putting a new cam bearings in, just put a new set of lifters in and call it a day. So rockers all look good, and they're well within spec for this particular cam that we put in. So anyways, we tore it down, honed the cylinders, mic'd everything, made sure everything was good, and put in new Molly piston rings, Cleveite bearings, Molly cam bearings, and then I recommended a Texas Speed cam.
Yeah, so we put like a little bit of an upgraded mild cam on this. What, I don't even remember what it was called. Is it like the Truck Norris or something? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's just a stage 3. It's a mild cam. It's a low end torque cam. It's not like a super high horsepower. I think it only had a 112 LSA, lobe separation angle, so it'll sound really good at idle, but not too much additional tuning needs to go into the motor.
Still can run the stock valve springs.
Yeah, stock valve springs.
It's gonna just have a little bit more horsepower, but and a little more torque, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, and I had built one for another guy with I think this same cam, so we already had some tuning options. What I like to do is get a base tune in it, and so I pulled some numbers out of the VE table for this cam for the other guy, and it runs really good, so I just did the same thing for this one. And
so talking about tuning, let's step back a little bit. we decided we're going to go with just a factory GM computer on this.
Yep.
Rather than doing some crazy Holly system or something, because it really doesn't warrant that. And you're very familiar with the GM computer. You've done quite a few of these.
Yeah.
You've already got, like you said, you've already got a base tune. You've been really successful with it. You've been running basically this engine platform now for quite a while in your buggies. Your very first buggy had something a little bit more spicy, but you've been doing this quite a while now. But this is probably what, maybe your 8th or 9th engine? I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that's a good number. I've put them in old like 51 pickups. I've put them in Land Cruisers and buggies, and yeah, it's just a good platform. The 4.8, the 5.3, and the 6.0 have a lot of the same parts that they use, so they're interchangeable. Obviously, the block is different, but and the 5.3 is just such a great platform. It gets good fuel mileage, it runs super cool, and it makes good power for as lightweight as these off-road rigs are. So
if a guy wanted to come to you and just do kind of I would call this sort of a budget refresh.
Yeah.
You didn't end up taking this to the machine shop because I didn't really feel that you needed to.
No.
Although you could have.
Sure.
If I wanted you to. You didn't have to resurface anything. You probably ran like a dingle ball hone in the cylinders to clean things up. But if a guy wanted you to take something to a machine shop and do something a little bit more in depth, you could certainly do that as well, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we could do a 10 over, 20, 30 over bore. They've got plenty of ring options for that. We can have the valve seats recut, have a valve job done. These ones actually looked really good, so I have some lapping compounds, so we lapped all the valves and freshened them up. So new valve stem seals, the works. But yeah, if somebody wanted to go a little bit more spicier on it, new pistons, whatever. But as far as new parts, this pretty much got everything new aside from some rockers, like new cam bearings and everything from the internals up.
So the one thing that I did have you do is you modified the oil or the water pump.
Water pump, yeah.
Put this block off plate on here. You TIG welded that on there, and I had you build me or do 2 of them, so I have a spare water pump.
Yep.
And for those that aren't familiar with why you do this, can you kind of tell us?
Yeah, so off of this location right here, there's usually an inlet and an outlet, and those go to your heater core. And so in my dealings with the LS block, you have a couple options. So you can run the heater core as traditional, or they make a bypass tube, and it's just a looped tube that goes from one end to the other, or you can block it off completely. So in my dealings, in order for the thermostat to work correctly, I've always found that having a looped water passage from one side to the other has been the best option for what I've done. And so you may be thinking, well, you just blocked that off. Well, I did, but on the back side of here, I machined a pocket that goes from one side to the other, so water can still travel from the front to the back side of the water pump behind this plate here.
Awesome.
So and sometimes you do this just for sheer packaging. Like if your frame rails are super close in here and you don't have enough room for that bypass tube to come over, then this is another option. And then we could even go further. We've taken these out and TIG welded AN bungs so that you can run AN coolant hoses. So there's lots of things, but that's why we do that on these particular water pumps in lieu of the bypass tube.
And then this is just a regular factory truck intake.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it probably produces a little bit more low end.
They do actually flow a little bit better than an LS1 intake. I like to run them. They're a plentiful. They fit in your chassis. They fit in my chassis. You don't have to have any special parts.
Some people in a buggy situation may not be able to run it because they don't have clearance, and they would have to go to something like a Camaro intake? Or,
yeah, low profile F-body style intake.
But that combined with replacing the stock oil pan is going to shorten things up, and you can pretty much fit it anywhere. The one thing I'll probably end up doing is turning that thing around, so I run the air cleaner on the inside of the cab which is very easy to do.
Yeah, the only other thing we did was we swapped out the drive-by-wire throttle body to a drive-by cable, and then just reflashed the computer to accommodate that throttle body.
And do you want to talk about the fuse block that you provided at all, or I don't know?
Yeah. So we make in-house fuse blocks for LS swaps. So this is one I made for Carlos, and they use micro fuses, micro relays, and we borrow harnesses from BP Automotive, and they actually have a fuse block that they sell with theirs, but it doesn't have enough slots that I like to run for fuel pumps and fans and things of that nature. So
probably not also set up for like a buggy situation.
No,
it needs to be more.
No. So I make these specifically for off-road and swapping in, and so this can pretty much wire into either an aftermarket or original OEM wiring harness. That way you can make this motor standalone, which basically means power, ignition, and ground to run the whole motor. And then the nice thing about the GM platform, or the GM ECM, is that GM spent years refining this platform, so I like to run it because it integrates everything. You can set all your cooling fan temps from inside the ECM, turns your fuel pump on, there's safety features, and then you can tune as much as you need to. It's just, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, since something that GM spent a lot of time on refining, and it works great.
A lot of highly paid engineers figure that out. So, oh, awesome.
So aside from getting it up and running, you can add any type of management system for managing different parameters, i.e. oil temps, fuel pressure, cooling temps, things like that. So I like to use the AEM stuff, and with using that, you have to have an auxiliary port for cooling. So on this passenger side head here, there's a plug in the block, or in the head usually, so I take that out and tap that out to a 3/8 for an AEM sensor. And then these metric oil pressure sensors, there's just an adapter that goes in there to adapt that to what AEM sells. So other than that, it's a plug and play application once you get the fuse block done. And aside from regulating fuel pressure, the computer will do everything it needs to do when running. We still run factory upstream O2 sensors. We've deleted the downstream O2 sensors. So
So am I going to need an O2 sensor on each bank?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Each bank will have an O2 sensor so that it can see exactly what each side is doing, and it'll adjust your air-fuel ratio accordingly.
Factory coil packs.
Yep.
All pretty simple, basic stuff. Proven.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing. Like, you can get any of these parts at a local parts store.
Yeah.
So if you break down, you can go buy anything on this motor aside from that water pump. But we've done two for you. So
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, the water pump's not something that usually goes bad. You could probably get 100,000 miles out of a water pump. 100,000 miles in a buggy is going to be years and years of wheeling. So
that's a lot of wheeling.
Yeah.
Right on.
But that's the gist of it. This got a 7-quart oil pan that's got trap doors in it, and so it helps keep the oil in the center where the pickup is when you go off camber. And then I believe you're running a Turbo 400.
Yep.
Yeah. So the 400 bolts right to, like a 350. They bolt right to the block, and
you just have to get a different flex plate.
yeah. So if you get a 4L80 flex plate, it's got the snout, the standoff that bolts to the crank that stands the flex plate off the right distance to run a Turbo 400 or a Turbo 350 without any adapters. So that's a nice thing. Again, utilizing stock components, you don't have to get crazy on getting specialty stuff.
Yep.
So
the other thing that's nice about this aftermarket oil pan is it's got a bolt-on oil filter adapter. And so I took it off there because I'm not going to be able to run the oil filter right here in the stock location because my lower links are right there in the way. So I'll run a remote. You can get an adapter for a remote oil filter relocation kit. So that's what's cool about that aftermarket oil pan, and the fact that it's a little bit shorter and it's steel. So if something were to happen, chances are you'd be able to fix it on the trail.
Well, and that's another thing, like if you had to take most of these gaskets or plates off of this motor, the way GM designed these seals, they're an aluminum impregnated with rubber, and so when you tighten them down, it tightens against the aluminum and kind of sets the depth at which the rubber compresses.
Right.
And so you can reuse them in essence if you need to.
It's not like the old 350s and 454s where you're squirting all kinds of RTV in there.
No, and that's I was talking to a buddy about that the other day, about the old small blocks where you had to silicone the front and the rear of the intakes and set it down. And yeah, with these valley covers, they're just bolt on. And
the notorious rear main seal leak as well.
Yep.
Right on.
Yeah, I like the way these are designed because they don't have that two-piece seal. It's a one-piece, less chances of leak, and it's just a good platform.
Yeah.
Like, it's tried and true. I've used them. Like I said, I've built 8 to 10 of them, but I've used more of them in other builds and turned other people onto them just because it's a solid platform.
Have you messed with any of the newer generation ones that have the variable valve timing or anything on them?
So I've messed with Gen 4 stuff, but I never have gotten into that variable valve stuff because in the Gen 4 platform, they do have motors that don't have VVT integrated into them. The Econoline van or the van platform for some reason does not have VVT, so those are the ones that we have dabbled in. But yeah, we've reprogrammed E38 ECMs, E40 ECMs, and they're a very small ECM that has the drive-by-wire already integrated into the ECM. So, and that's the nice thing about BP Automotive is they got swap harnesses for all those platforms, and if you don't have a computer or anything like that, you can go buy one from them and tell them what you're doing, and they can get you a bass tune set up if you don't have somebody local to do one for you. So
awesome. Perfect.
She's going to be a runner.
Yeah, I can't wait to make this thing sing. Got a little bit more work to do, but one more piece of the puzzle, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, man. I'm excited.
Anthony's going to take us on a little shop tour. It's always nice to see other people's junk.
Yeah. This is storage / plasma room. So 5x10 ArcLight Dynamics plasma table does wonders. And then storage shelves.
Rig.
Yeah, this is the new family wagon we just got done with. So excited to get out this year and get the family on the trail and do some camping.
Right on. Couple more tools, another mill
We machine Super Duty knuckles for high steer. We have an aluminum 7075 high steer arm that we bolt to a Super Duty knuckle.
That's one of your main sellers, isn't it?
Yeah, we do quite a bit. We do 99 to 04 knuckles and 2005 to 12 knuckles. And so we can set them up single shear, double shear. We got unit bearings that are re-drilled for Ford or Chevy pattern. As dinosaur as it may seem, this is probably one of my favorite machines in the shop. The lathe, it's just endless possibilities with your imagination on what you can and cannot make. And so I find myself just tinkering with stuff just to fire it up.
Yeah.
Here's a 14 bolt that we just built. Retubed it. This has got Ford Super Duty unit bearing cups with a Ford Super Duty unit bearing, so that the guys running Ford front Dana 60 Super Duties have a beefy axle in the rear, and so this one's going to be set up with 40 spline axle shafts interior.
You do all the axle shafts too?
Yep, we do all the interior shafts as well. We spline and do front shafts, rear shafts, 35 spline, 30 spline, 30, 40 spline, whatever spline you want.
You also have lightweight brake kits for the Super Duty stuff, and then you also probably adapt it to these unit bearing cups too, right?
Yep. Yeah, so these, we have Sterling lightweight brake kits, Super Duty lightweight brake kits, and then now these 14 bolts, we have lightweight brake kits that utilize a weld-on bracket just outside the unit bearing cup surface, so you can run the same stuff front and rear. Right on.
Then you got the big sister to my little tube dragon.
Yes.
This is the, what is it, A450?
A400.
A400.
Yeah. Yeah, so this
is the big girl.
This has got the 24-foot gantry on it, so it'll hold a fair amount of tube, and also it does
those rectangular.
Yeah, square tube, rectangular, channel, angle iron.
Yeah, that's cool. Got a bunch of bump stop cans on here that you've been working on.
It's a learning curve to draw something flat and then cut it out of square. That's been a big learning curve, but it's fun. Another tool that saves, as you know, so much time in hand coping, and so.
Yep, huge time saver.
And then the last bit, we've got 4800 car that we've been working on for a customer.
Yeah, to redo the whole entire back end of it.
Yeah, we've cut the chassis off right at the X brace and redid the whole back end. A bunch of axle work, interior work, front end work. So it should be back up to race standards here pretty soon.
The guy wanted to run the Jeep grill, huh?
Yep.
So you're getting that all adapted to where you can run that.
Yeah.
Is he gonna actually race this?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's an East Coast guy, so he'll do a bunch of short course back on the East Coast, and then he'll come out for Hammers in 2026.
And then you got your chassis over here that's finished up and ready to go.
Yep.
This is your Longhorn?
Yep.
It's a two-seater.
Two-seat, yep.
Yep. You got, probably 24 of these under your belt by now?
This is number 24. This one, he ordered pretty much with everything. You can bolt the whole drivetrain in, you can bolt all the suspension in, all the panel work's done. So order it however you want, make it easy. Some people want to do a bunch of fab work, some people just want to bolt it in. This has got all the seat mounts and batteries and center console and winch plates and coil-over tabs and belly pan. Sweet.
At the other big girl there behind you, that thing's a time saver. That thing's a behemoth.
Yeah, I would like to get it somewhat computer controlled, but as of right now, like, it bends a 4-foot sheet of 1/4 inch. It bends all my belly pans. So definitely a big step up from the old swag press brake that I started with years ago. So yeah, it's been a good machine.
Right on. Well, thanks.
Other than that, that's it.
Thanks for giving us a tour. The tools and toys everywhere.
Never a lack of things going on. So